Hey there, how's it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward, and I just got this email from one of my subscribers, Chad, and he wants to know about intermittent fasting and how can you make intermittent fasting work for fat loss? First off, intermittent fasting is nothing new. I mean, I know you go online and there's all these blogs and videos and gurus out there trying to promote intermittent fasting as some latest and greatest fat loss craze. And intermittent fasting is as old as eating itself. Everybody, you right now are intermittent fasting, whether you realize it or not. Because when you go to bed at night and you go however many hours, like let's say you sleep 8 hours a night, and then you don't eat. Well, you've just fasted throughout the night. And then when you wake up in the morning and you have breakfast, you're breaking the fast. That's why we call it breakfast, right? So everybody is intermittent fasting. So there's no rules or well, this isn't intermittent fasting because you didn't go long enough, or that is intermittent fasting because you went longer, or everybody fasts if you go a period of time without food. Now, the advantage to this, the whole reason we do it in the first place, is just a way to control calories. I mean, you have different ways to limit the amount of food that you eat if you want to lose body fat. You can eat less food per meal, or you can just eat less meals. And the problem with eating less food per meal is you often leave the table feeling hungry. And this hunger sensation is what screws up everybody's fat loss program. I mean, everybody would be successful with dieting and losing weight and maintaining it if they just didn't get hungry, right? That's the problem, right? Everybody knows, hey, I should eat less, I should exercise more, I should, do all that stuff. But it's hard when your belly is rumbling and you're physically hungry and you have to rely on willpower to prevent yourself from eating, right? If you can only do that so much. I mean, people do it for, weeks or months, but eventually you're going to run out of willpower, right? Willpower is a finite resource. You can't rely on it forever. It's only going to last so long. And that's why 98% of dieters will regain the weight when they come off a diet, right? You see this all the time. You've probably done it yourself, right? You went on a diet at one time or another, saw fantastic results, right? You lost a bunch of weight. But eventually, you get sick and tired of dieting. You get sick and tired of feeling hungry all the time, and then you eat, you binge, you cheat on the diet. And sometimes it just gets out of control. You can't stop yourself. And then you eat and eat and eat, and you yo-yo and gain all the weight that you lost back. Sometimes even, several pounds more, right? That's what they mean by yo-yo dieting, right? You go on a low-calorie diet, you lose the weight, you can't stand it, you lose your willpower, you eat, you gain it all back again, right? So intermittent fasting is a strategy that will help you to manage your hunger a little bit better. It's not perfect, and it's not some magical fat loss formula. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's the only way to lose fat or whatever, but the benefit of intermittent fasting is that it allows you to have big, satisfying meals when you do eat. So instead of doing the typical bodybuilding diet of the 6 small meals a day, I mean, that is torture if you're trying to keep your calories under a certain amount, the 6 small meals a day, because every time you eat, you stimulate your appetite. And it makes you hungrier. Now, that's great if you want to bulk up and gain weight. The skinny-haired gainer who's trying to get the calories in and bulk up. 6 small meals a day is fantastic. It works. That's why it became popular. But when you're trying to lose weight and limit your calories, it's torture, because what will end up happening, let's just say, for example, you want to have, just throw out some numbers, you want to keep your calories around 2,000 per day, and you're eating 6 meals a day. I mean, you're only getting a few hundred calories a meal. I mean, a few hundred calories is nothing. It's just enough to, you eat that few hundred calories and you just stimulated your appetite, so now you're hungry, but then you got to push yourself away from the table still hungry. And I mean, that's no fun. That's hard. I mean, that's where the willpower comes in, because every time you eat, you're stimulating your appetite, and then you're pushing yourself away from the table unsatisfied, right? I mean, that's almost like, making love with somebody and starting the foreplay process but never finishing, right? You're starting the foreplay and you're getting all aroused, you're getting everything stimulated, but then you stop before you're satisfied. I mean, that's torture. Nobody wants to do that. Who wants to stop before they're satisfied? I don't, right? So the benefit of intermittent fasting, I know I'm kind of making a weird correlation here, but hey, it's one that'll probably link up with your mind, is it allows you to have bigger, more satisfying meals. So instead of having a bunch of unsatisfying meals, you can have fewer, more satisfying meals and still keep your calories in the same range. So you can still keep yourself in a calorie deficit. So instead of having a few hundred calories per meal, maybe if you only eat a couple meals a day, you're having now 1,000 calories per meal. Big, satisfying meal. I mean, you feel comfortably full. Your belly is, satisfied, and you're still keeping yourself within that 2,000 calorie limit that you set for yourself. So that's where intermittent fasting helps. It controls your appetite. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to calories in versus calories out. That's it. Right? You can lose weight on 6 meals a day as long as you keep your calories in check and you're in a calorie deficit. You can lose weight on 1 meal a day as long as you keep your calories in check and you're in a calorie deficit, or any of these other variations, right? That's all that really matters. Now, some people think that because they're intermittent fasting that they can eat whatever they want, right? That, this is a mistake. This is a mistake of intermittent fasting, and it's why it doesn't work for some people, because they use it as a free-for-all ticket to think, well, because I'm only eating 1 or 2 meals a day or whatever, I can eat whatever I want. And, calories don't count because I was burning fat all day long. Now I get to have my big meal and look out, right? But if you eat more calories in that one meal or however many meals it is, I'm just using OMAD as an example, 1 meal a day, because that's like very popular. I'm sure if you're watching this and you've been following along with any intermittent fasting information, you've heard of OMAD, 1 meal per day. And the whole idea is people think, well, I can eat whatever I want in that meal and I won't gain fat. Now, to a certain extent, it may work, because especially when you started initially, you probably don't have enough of an appetite to meet your calorie intake in just 1 meal. But after a while, what's going to happen is your appetite is going to increase, right? The more often you do this, the longer it works, the longer you're doing it, your appetite's going to increase, and you're going to increase the amount of food that you can eat during that 1 meal. So people can get to the point where even though they're eating 1 meal a day, they can actually gain weight on that if they're eating enough food. Or you'll at least get to the point where you're eating so much that you're not losing weight. Maybe you're averaging a calorie maintenance instead of a calorie deficit. And I can relate to this because I've done intermittent fasting myself, and I know when I first started and I didn't have a huge appetite in the fact that I couldn't eat a whole lot in a single meal, I found it very satisfying and it worked really well. So I wasn't counting calories, or I wasn't really, trying to restrict myself. I just let my natural appetite suppression by eating food and feeling satisfied, that suppressed my appetite, and it actually kept me in a calorie deficit. So when I first started intermittent fasting, I was losing weight very consistently, and it was very easy. But what I found is, as the weeks went by, my appetite was increasing. So when I'd have that meal or those couple meals at the end of the day, I was eating more and more food during those meals, and eventually got to the point where what was once causing me to lose weight, now this program, I'm maintaining my weight. Now I'm at a plateau, even though I'm intermittent fasting. So then, you got to break out the calculator and actually do the math and realize, hey, these numbers, the calories count, right? Regardless of what's going on, calories count. You can't get away from that. So what I recommend you do, even if you're intermittent fasting or 6 meals a day or whatever variation of dieting, keep track of your calories. That is the most important thing. You can't get away from that. And I'll give you another example to go along with this. I know this is a lengthy video, but hey, I'd rather over deliver and try and get my message out there versus cutting it short. You can actually get fat intermittent fasting. So I kind of want to bust a fallacy here. People think that you can get away with and eat whatever you want, and I kind of mentioned the whole calories in versus calories out. But the fattest people in the world follow intermittent fasting, and they actually follow 1 meal a day. The fattest people in the world. You want to know an example of who that is? Sumo wrestlers. Traditional Japanese sumo wrestlers will eat one massive meal at the end of the day. Sometimes pushing it to 10,000 calories in a single meal. It's just absurd for a normal person to fathom that. But if you look at like a 500-pound sumo wrestler, that's how they do it. They will do all their training early in the day in a fasted state. So there's no food in their system, and they're doing their wrestling practice and their exercise that they do and whatever. I mean, whatever a sumo wrestler does. I mean, I don't know their training regime, but they'll do all their training in a fasted state, and then at the end of the day, they just gorge themselves on one massive meal. And not only are they eating a lot of food, but they usually wash it down with a lot of alcohol, in the form of beer and sake and stuff like that. And that actually contributes to fat gain even that much more, because when alcohol is in your system, it shuts down fat burning. Right? If you are drinking alcohol on a regular basis, you are regularly shutting down your body's ability to burn body fat, because when there's alcohol in your system, the alcohol has to be metabolized first before your body will start burning body fat. So that's where the whole idea of the beer belly comes from. If you're regularly drinking beer, or any alcohol for that matter, it's going to slow down your fat burning, because that alcohol literally stops fat burning dead in its tracks until that alcohol is metabolized and out of your system. So that's a huge thing. If you want to get lean, cut back on the alcohol. And the less you drink, the better it's going to be for your fat loss results. So I know this, my screensaver even kicked in here. I know this was a lengthy video, but I hope it was a good one. I hope I got the whole point about intermittent fasting across. And if you have any questions about this, questions, comments, feedback, post them down in the comment section below. I always love getting your feedback about this. And if you would like some personalized help with structuring a customized meal plan to help you with your muscle building or fat loss goals, send me an email. My email is leeh@leehayward.com. Just drop me a line, tell me what situation you're in, whether you're trying to bulk up, cut, or whatever, and I'll be happy to have a chat with you, and we can share and brainstorm some strategies on the best approach that would work for you in your particular situation. So go ahead, do that, and I will talk to you in my next video coming soon. Take care. Over and out.